Welcome to What Nobody Tells You. I'm your host, James Farino. Join me while we explore the truths most people never hear. On this week's episode of What Nobody Tells You, we'll be talking with Tevis Feng, the founder of White Tiger Qigong. And in Tevia's Taoist order, he is not allowed to show his face in any promotions. So half of the screen will be blank. You'll only be able to see me. So there's nothing wrong with the recording. There's nothing wrong with your computer. You just won't be seeing Tevia's face in this conversation. Welcome to What Nobody Tells You. I'm James Farino, and our guest today on What Nobody Tells You is White Tiger Qigong founder Tevis Feng. Welcome, Tevia.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. We'll start at the beginning. You began these practices at 7 years old. What was happening in your inner world that made that something you wanted to do?
Well, I was born with chronic illness, and my parents didn't want me to be on medications my whole life. They didn't want me to be in and out of hospitals with doctors. They wanted a different path. And so they introduced me to a Qigong master. And I was blown away by what they were doing in the class. And so every day after school, they would take me to train. And that forged a path that stayed with me for the rest of my life. So it was in those developmental years that influenced me so powerfully about Qigong, and it helped me strengthen my spirit and resolve so that I wasn't feeling debilitated and broken down. And so a lot of people, when they face chronic illness, they feel they can't win anything. They feel defeated. And Qigong strengthened my spirit and concentrated it so that I was able to persevere through adversity. And that was one of the greatest gifts that I got from it.
That's an important lesson for all of us. So you mentioned adversity. Did pain help choose some of it for you? Was that a factor?
My immune system was like a candy cane. It was weak. So my grandmother died an early death of a respiratory disease. I have colon cancer in my family. I have bone cancer in my family. I have heart disease in my family. It seems like I felt like I was born with 3 strikes against me. And then I was in a brutal car accident when I was young. If things were not bad enough as it was. And the doctors told me I needed to have surgery on my spine. They said there was no way around it, and surgery on my knee. And I was frightened. I was scared to go under the knife. And I went to my master, and he gave me a simple Qigong exercise to do for my back pain. It was debilitating back pain. I mean, I couldn't get out of bed. Some days I couldn't sit for more than 30 minutes without being in back pain. Interfered with my whole life. But through this Qigong, I was able to make the back pain subside enough that I could get on with my day. So when I was working on a desk, I would get up every 30 to 40 minutes and start doing about 5 minutes of this Qigong exercise. And it would help the back pain subside enough that I could continue with my work. And so that's what really got me into Qigong for body pain. Yeah.
So this is how we find our paths. What did this experience, kind of the spinal injury on top of what you were already dealing with, what did this teach you about your body?
Well, one of the things that we have in Taoism is the spirit is intrinsically connected to the physical body. So there's no separation.
Mm-hmm.
So how can we put that on a tangible level? Let's say you're going through deep anxiety or fear. Your body clenches, it braces itself. The tissues in the body harden as you're preparing for danger.
Mm-hmm.
And that can create body pain. Like, let's say you're sitting in a chair and that happens, and you're sitting in a chair all day. Well, you're already in a fixed position, and your body is a machine of efficiency. So it's going to try to shape itself into how you're holding yourself. And that hardens like a mold.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you already have maybe back pain from sitting down too much from a sedentary lifestyle, and then you compound that with fear and anxiety and the nervous system bracing
Mm-hmm.
the tissues in the body. Now you're either exacerbating that body pain or you're creating more and new body pain in
Mm-hmm.
different places. So the emotions have a direct effect on the physical body, and the physical body has a direct effect on the emotions. So if you're in having back pain, how can you be happy and and feel free,
Mm-hmm.
right? How can you be enjoying your day when you're in debilitating back pain? I don't know anybody who is. So it's imperative that we work on ourselves. We try to heal ourselves both physically and mentally, emotionally, and that's done at the same time. So, I'm a proponent of therapy, but I think that it must have its equal component, and that is movement. So,
Mm-hmm.
what Qigong does is it works on both levels. It works, particularly white tiger Qigong, our system. Not all Qigong is the same.
Mm-hmm.
There's over 3,000 kinds of Qigong that are documented. But within those
Mm.
3,000 kinds, how do you decipher which one is right for you? Well,
Yeah.
this kind that I studied and was focused, it's called medical Qigong, Taoist medical Qigong, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
really medical in a clinical context or any type of context like that. But in the sense, it's focused on longevity, on peak performance, on emotional balance, and feeling free in your body. And that results in feeling free in your life, because I look at the body like a wetsuit, in the sense that your body can start to become restricted, limiting your movement, and you feel stuck and stagnant, or it can be loose and free and you feel you can move, and that translates into feeling free in your life. So I've
Mm.
seen the most wealthy of men who were in such bad pain in their body that they felt like they were in a prison. So no matter what you have, money can't buy your way out of your health when it comes to the restriction in the tissue. You must do the work. You cannot outsource it to anyone. It's something that we must bear the responsibility for. And so by taking responsibility for myself with Qigong, I created a different path. I remember crying to my mother saying, I won't live to be the age of 21, Mom. And
Mm.
she said, you will, and you'll be stronger. And through Qigong, that will to live, the will to thrive, not just survive, it forged my identity in a way that was an identity of resilience.
Mm. And was there a moment you realized that your life was going to be largely about the healing process for yourself and others?
Good question. When I was about 19, I realized when I was doing my Qigong, I realized this is what I'm going to do the rest of my life. I just
Mm.
was doing my Qigong and I just knew it innately that this is my path.
Mm.
Maybe I'll do many things in my life, but Qigong will be a staple. And it was when I was in my late 20s, and I was working in a clinic in China, and my first Qigong patient, he was dying of liver cancer. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't smile. And doing Qigong with him for only 3 days, and he was able to eat, he was able to sleep, and he was able to smile. And he invited me into his home, treated me like a family member. And it was this connection with a human being who was enduring true suffering, facing his mortality, feeling his body decay in front of his eyes, feeling helpless in the process, and being able to share the light with him that saved me. And I knew at that moment, that connection with this human being who's suffering and watching him start to come alive again, I said, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. I want to share this Qigong with others who are suffering and others who need it, who want it. So not just those who are suffering now, but anyone who really wants it and needs it.
That's an extraordinary story. I've heard a lot of stories about Qigong. I mean, one hears that people end up being cured from things that supposedly don't have a cure, or that they go through something really transformative. What do you put that down to? Why is it Qigong and not other practices?
I don't know about other practices, but Qigong, I don't call it a cure. I call it, there's no magic bullet. People are looking for a magical cure, and unfortunately, the health and wellness industry is filled with people who are trying to sell the magical cure for $5,000. And that's one of the hard truths I try to let my students know. There's no magical cure, and nothing. I'm not going to do it for you. Qigong is not going to do it for you. You have to do the work. So, for example, I have this one student, top engineer, super intelligent, hyper intelligent, and super successful, but was debilitated by body pain and couldn't work anymore at a super high paying job for an amazing company. But he just couldn't work because it was just too much pain, couldn't focus. And he came to me, and he had all these people offering him magical cures. Oh, I'll cure your body pain, and I'll do it from a distance. I'll do distance healing. I'm not saying distance healing is bad. I'm just saying. And I said to him, all these people promising you magical cures, if they make a guarantee, number one, walk away. There's no guarantees. Number two, if you're not doing any work and you're just outsourcing it, don't believe it. Because you have to, your body tissues, his body tissues were super hard. There was thick knots in his tissue. And I said, there's no one can heal that with a tool. You have to do it yourself through deliberate, precise movement that works on the right areas of your body and works out those fascial adhesions. And after, he didn't quite understand what I meant until he started doing the training, and he realized, he went through a massive transformation after just a short period of time of training with me. And it wasn't a cure, it wasn't magic, it was literally just him doing the work, the right kind of work, in the right way, with someone who knows the human body very, very well, and understands how to release those types of issues. But he did the work. I didn't do anything for him. I showed him. I taught him. I gave him the right exercises for him. But he did the work. And we also coupled that with balancing the emotions too. So he had deep anxiety about how he felt about himself, a lot of self-loathing from losing his position and from going into some deep insecurities. And the Qigong, we also worked with that on that level too. So once how can I explain that in a tangible example? So once we release the fascial adhesions and the tissue and make the body more malleable, instead of being stuck and sticky and thick, then we can start to reprogram the nervous system through specific intention. Qigong meditation. Qigong meditation, what's the difference between the Qigong meditation and just regular meditation is we have specific intentions and we're literally reprogramming the nervous system. It's almost like a self-hypnosis combined with breathing, combined with visualization. That's the power of Qigong meditation. But it's most effective once we've released the tissue in the body and let it relax. Then we can start to reprogram the nervous system more easily because we're not in the fight or flight scenario.
That makes total sense. A lot of it seems to come down to what you're saying, the fascial adhesions. Could you describe that in detail, maybe or more detail for people who don't really have a grasp on what that is exactly?
So fascia it's just underneath your skin. It's this fibery, gluey spider web that wraps around your muscles, wraps around your bone, and becomes the bone itself. It wraps around the organs. It's the glue that holds your body together. And when we're a child, when we're a baby, it's super malleable. Like you're just so uber flexible. And it has this elasticity to it, this springiness to it. But as we age, starting around in our late 20s to early 30s, it starts to lose its elasticity unless you train it. It starts to lose its malleability. It becomes more plastic, more rigid, almost like clay that's hardening. So it's imperative for longevity and health to keep that elasticity. And you need the right kind of training for it. And so fascia, what's very fascinating about fascia is that in cancer patients, research has shown metastatic cancer hardens the fascia 7 to 10 times than a regular person without cancer. So that gives us some very interesting clues into cancer. And that is when the fascia hardens so greatly, then and from a Chinese medicine standpoint, we have stagnation. Blood can't flow, qi circulation can't flow, and we get disease and potentially cancer. So, and because I came from a family with a lot of cancer, I was very interested, and I feel it's really important for me to understand cancer and how I can stave off cancer and thrive and not get cancer. So that's why I researched that very well. And I've since then, we've released a course with a cancer patient, Jennifer Golden, who's amazing. She's a breast cancer survivor. She coined the term breast cancer thriver. So, and she is a White Tiger Qigong instructor and created an amazing course on thriving with cancer with Qigong. And we put that out, but unfortunately it's very difficult to share that because they penalize you in social media for trying to promote something that's positive, right? That maybe hits other people's pockets, right? So we're not able to promote that so publicly, but it's an amazing course, and it's a testament to how Qigong can help keep that malleability, and that's my hypothesis. This is not a medical claim, but why it can help with cancer or prevent cancer, because we keep that elasticity in the tissue in the body, and we have deep circulation throughout the body.
That makes sense to me. I'm wondering, word this properly. So you've been doing Qigong since you were very young. Have you noticed a difference between yourself and others that haven't been doing it? Have you noticed that your less susceptible to that fascial hardening? Like what's the difference you've seen?
Well, number one, my posture. What happens is, and especially in this day and age, and it's frightening to see children with text neck, text neck where, and the
Yeah.
body's hunched forward and the head is like at an angle where it's pulling down on the neck and it's weighing on the spine. So it's adding
Yes.
weight exponentially to the spine. Every inch the head moves forward. So that's putting pressure on the body. And that's so obvious to me. Qigong teaches us really good posture. And it's interesting that now the longevity gurus are all jumping on the bandwagon on posture. The Taoists and the Qigong practitioners have been practicing good posture for centuries, if not thousands of years. But when we are in a bad posture and then allow the fascia to harden into that, it holds us in that bad posture. When we do Qigong, we have we get the malleability back and the elasticity in the tissue and the fascia. Now we do what's called standing Qigong, where we stand upright and we say we're connecting to heaven and earth, not in the religious sense of heaven, but in the sense of connecting to the cosmos through the crown point. So you feel the head lifting like helium, like a balloon, lifting it up to the sky. And that lengthens the spine. Meanwhile, the sacrum is being pulled down by gravity towards the earth. So you have this natural lengthening and straightening of the spine. And the whole body starts to align. All the vertebrae become unstuck. They loosen. And all of the organs hang off of the spine. So, and the crown jewel sits on top. That's the brain, right? So when you have good posture, your brain has better cerebral spinal fluid flow to the brain, which nourishes the brain, gives you better thinking, decision-making, clearer thinking, and the organs can breathe, so to speak. Like they have their own space. They're not crunched together in a tight little space. So yes, I noticed that difference. Posture, I noticed the way people move. I can see, the fascial adhesions are an interesting thing. So what we have in the fascia is that when you have a sedentary lifestyle and you let's say you wake up in the morning. You wake up in the morning, every morning, do you notice your body's a little bit stiff? Well, you've built up this so-called fuzz. Gil Hedley coined the term, what the fuzz? The fuzz is these little adhesions, these micro adhesions that start to form. Now, if you don't move, it starts to harden more and more. This fuzz builds up thicker and thicker and thicker. Now, if you don't move that for days, that builds up thicker, years, even really thick. So I can see the fascial adhesions by seeing the thickness of the tissue in someone's body. And then you can actually feel it when you squeeze it, it's hardened. So a lot of people in their trapezius and necks, I see a lot of real hardened tissue around the shoulders, around the hips. It's really hardened and it stiffens around the spine. And then these adhesions just grow thicker and thicker. And then if you get an injury and it's not healed right, you get an adhesion. And adhesions are fascinating because they can go even around the organs. So you could have a fascial adhesion in the intestines. And I've seen actual images of fascial adhesions on the intestines. And that adhesion creates a kink. So the intestines look like a hose almost.
Yeah.
And if you get a fascial adhesion in the intestines, it creates a kink. And now the food can't go. There's a blockage in the intestines. The food gets stuck. You don't have proper elimination, proper digestion. It's not moving through. More food's piling up. And just imagine just a little space for the food to move through. So a lot of it's getting stuck and it's clogging up the pipes. And now you have a clogged up pipe and you think, okay, something must be wrong with my digestion, so I'm going to take a pill. You take the pill, but that's not addressing the issue. The issue is you have that fascial adhesion. And now you're creating a secondary issue from the side effects from that medication that might not even be addressing the issue in the first place, the underlying issue, which is the adhesion. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people. And so we have all types of organ issues that people aren't aware of. Why? A lot of them are fascial adhesions. And that comes, again, through a sedentary lifestyle or not the proper exercise. Let's say you just go to the gym. People say, I go to the gym. Well, you go to the gym, that's great. I'm a proponent of the gym. Why not? But it must be balanced. The gym is just giving you linear movements, right? You're just getting linear movements. You're not exercising the organs. In our Qigong, we actually do organ exercise. Did you know each organ has its own range of motion? Each organ has its own range of motion that you should be working on a daily basis. Expanding that range. Did you know the heart has its own range of motion? And when the heart, as we age, if you lose the range of motion in the heart starts to atrophy. When the heart starts to atrophy, we pump less blood to the organs, to the other organs, and throughout the body. And so you have less energy and you don't know why. Well, your heart's atrophied. Then your brain, because you're not getting proper cerebral spinal fluid flow to the brain, your brain starts to atrophy after the age of 27, neuroscientists say, if you don't get proper flow to the brain. So now your brain starts to atrophy, your heart starts to atrophy, you get less circulation of the organs, you move less because you have less energy. So everything starts to snowball and decay. And so the whole thing with this Qigong is we thrive instead. We that's how we're creating longevity and creating a larger heart, larger space for the organs to move freely, creating good flow to the brain. All of these things, and you're creating a really good space for your body to be in. And thus, your spirit will feel good. Your emotions will be more clear and lighter. I'm not saying you won't go through the emotions like anybody else. Everybody goes through emotions, no matter how high level of a Qigong practitioner you are. I've seen my masters cry and scream. But the difference is they have a tool for which they can process their emotions more easily and let them go. It's when we hold on to emotions, and what I've noticed with some of the people, with every major cancer patient I've worked with, that they've held emotions so deeply and weren't able to let them go. Whether it was resentment, frustration, anger, they weren't letting it go, and it was compiling and building up and compounding. And so that's a really important part of the Qigong. We do a lot of emotional release and reprogramming.
Fantastic. That's a lot of what I do with clients is emotional release and letting go.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And that's a major part of it. But what you were describing sounded to me like you were describing the aging process as we know it, which made me think, oh, perhaps this doesn't not only this doesn't have to be the aging process, but maybe it hasn't always been that way, or maybe there's some people that it wasn't that way for. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Well, I think there's a lot of great new developments in the longevity world. And there's a lot of stuff that I noticed the longevity gurus are going after, and it's great. But I don't know why so many of them are missing one of the crucial pieces, and that is your emotions are a huge part of your longevity. And you can do all the longevity therapies in the world. You got your red light bed, you've got your sauna, you've got your hyperbaric chamber. But if you're still living in anxiety and fear, or if you're approaching your longevity from that mental space of fear and anxiety of dying,
Of fear, yeah.
You're taking 2 steps back. You know, you're got 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And so I think that it's imperative for those who are truly seeking longevity, we consider our overall well-being, not just the longevity of the body, but our overall well-being, how we're feeling in our life. That's why I like the term health span better than lifespan. I'd rather have 60 solid years of being healthy and free than another 20 in a wheelchair or in bed riddled with illnesses, right? So the quality of your life, and you have to consider if you're going to be doing all those therapies, which again, I think is great, but you're going to be spending a lot of your life in a capsule, in a hyperbaric chamber, in a sauna, in a red light therapy bed. So I hope you're doing something that's enjoyable there too, and
Yeah.
hope you're spending equal amount of time on your emotions, your emotional well-being, as you are your physical well-being, and to remember that they're both tied together. Because all those therapies, if you're still living in fear, like I said, your body's bracing, your heart's pumping and you have cortisol releases constantly because you're facing potential calamity after calamity, or you're living in a state of constant anxiety, fight or flight, you're still shooting yourself in the foot. So I think it's very important that we recognize these things. And yeah, so be careful of the longevity gurus, in that we don't know their personal side of their life. We don't know what's going on for them, and that we need to have our own power. And that's why I teach all my students, I'm not a guru, I'm not your master. I'm just a person who got I was facing illness, facing adversity, and I learned this ancient practice. It worked for me, and I believe it can work for you too. But you got to do the work. And no one's going to do it for you. No one's going to be your savior. You've got to, and the power is within you. And that's the thing. I think in the modern day and age, people give away their power over to these gurus rather than self-empowerment. Qigong teaches us self-empowerment, that the power resides within us, not in somebody else. Yeah.
I like that. I did an entire podcast on that a few weeks ago about outsourcing your authority and how rampant it is, how it's everywhere, and that you can be outsourcing your authority in all these different areas, your health, but everything else as well. And I've also noticed that really for me, the health is physical, but it's also emotional, and it's also energetic and spiritual, whatever you want to call that. I'm also a intuition medicine practitioner, and the different energies in the body are really important. And it seems that you were talking about the health gurus, that there tends to be a focus on physical, and that the emotional and the energetic are largely ignored. It seems that that's been your experience as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And I've noticed, I might be a little different in other countries, but I've noticed here with whether it's Qigong or yoga or really almost any practice, that there's a real focus on the physical aspect of it, and the energetic aspect can be ignored. I did yoga for quite a few years, and I finally found one teacher that wasn't like that, but the dozen I'd seen before, it was just like going to the gym. It was just working out, which really is missing the boat, I think, on a lot of the important aspects of it. Because, like you said, it's not just about the body.
Yes.
So, as far as health goes, I mean, what's one of the biggest issues you see with most people? Something that they're, I know you've mentioned some things, but that they're ignoring completely.
Well, it's actually, I think a lot of people are looking at a big thing, but I call it death by a thousand cuts, because it's not just one big thing. It's like a multitude of different things adding up. So you might say, okay, I'm sitting all day, but I exercise once a day. But then you sit 8 hours a day and then don't do any other movement other than maybe the morning. So that after you've been sitting all day, you need to move a little bit, even if it's for 10, 15 minutes. But if you don't, then that's a cut, and a daily cut that builds up with fascial adhesions, et cetera. Then you say, okay, well, I eat healthy, but, I still have my, I have I have a couple of drinks, or I have a drink every day, or a couple of drinks every other day. That's not going to kill me. No, it's not going to kill you, but it's another cut. I'm not saying don't drink, but I'm just saying not as a daily habit, right? And then you have, eating, excessive eating, overeating, or eating processed foods consistently. You say that's not going to kill me, but yeah, it won't kill you, but that's another cut. And then you have emotional turmoil in your life, and you're not facing it, you're not coping with it, you're not learning to deal with it, you're trying to just ignore it. That's another cut. And then, you say, okay, I'm sleeping, but I'm getting good sleep, on the weekends, or, but okay, that's another cut. And then you're living in a polluted area. It's not going to kill you, but yeah, it's going to cut you. So now you have all these lacerations all over you. And you're maybe in toxic relationships, maybe in a stressful job or career, or maybe lacking even the ability to make money, which is a huge stress. And all these things compound, and they create constant stressors on the body and the mind. And so this is what I think. I think people are trying to look for the one big thing, but it's actually a multitude of small things that add up. That's my opinion.
The way I look at it is you have so much damage you can take, and where are you going to spend it? I look at it as, I'm going to do this one thing which I know isn't healthy, and that's where I'm going to spend it. But you can't spend much. And if you spend a lot of it, yeah, it's not great. Is there something you think that it's possible that people are misunderstanding about recovery? About what recovery is?
When you say recovery, it's kind of a general term.
So,
What do you mean?
The process of going from being injured or unwell to being back to the previous state.
Yeah, because when I hear recovery, 'cause I work with a lot of athletes, so the recovery for them is like recovering from a sporting event or an injury, or recovery from someone who is recovering from cancer, or recovery from someone who's been seriously ill, or someone who's been through deep trauma. Which one would you like me to work on or talk about?
So how about deep trauma? That's something I work on with people.
Deep trauma. So deep trauma is something I've done a lot of work on with people who've been through some of the most hellish things you can imagine a human being going through. Like literally, I've worked with victims of war crimes, stuff that, how do they recover? Well, it's a deep subject, and just a disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist. I don't hold a psychology degree, but I do have a lot of experience, and I've even worked with psychologists with trauma. So I can share with you from a Taoist Qigong lens my experience. And that is, with someone who's been through deep trauma, they forged an identity through that. They started identifying themselves through that lens of pain and suffering. And especially if it's done in the earlier years of their life. And so in Taoism, we have the three acquired minds, or the three identities, really. But these can splinter off into many identities. So when you were born, your parents told you your name. That was your first identity. You went to school, they taught you what to believe. It was only after I got out of high school that I realized most of the history lessons they taught me were fake. A lot of it was through a skewed perspective that fit the narrative of that particular country. And I noticed that as I've traveled to many countries around the world, many schools in different countries do that. They skew the history lessons in their favor and eliminate all the bad stuff that they did. So you get out of high school feeling duped. I felt duped. I felt deceived. So then you don't know what's real, because I had created an identity of, oh, this is the country I'm from. This is who I am. So that's your national identity that you formed. And that's one of the Taoists' acquired minds they talk about. Your name, your belief systems, your national identity, and maybe your religion. I'm not saying religion's bad, but we have to understand it's an identity. So once we understand it's an identity, then we can consciously choose if we want a religion or any religion, or what we choose to believe. It's all done consciously rather than just handed to us. And all of these beliefs, the sky is blue. There's some cultures that don't have a word for time in their language. So time is an identity in a sense. It's a belief system. So we have to be able to tear apart these belief systems, which can be scary at first, because you've created this fixed identity and belief system, and that gave you an anchor on how you are in the world. And you take away that anchor, it can be frightening at first. For me, it was very frightening to move through that work and to start to release those belief systems. Because then you're like, well, what's real then? What do I hold on to? And it's actually, we don't hold on to anything. There's a beautiful Tibetan practice, which I think is amazing. And that is, you build this artwork. It's like sand, kind of, these different colored sands. And you create, and you spend years and years and years making this artwork. And then once you've completed it, you wipe it away. So you wipe away years of work. And that teaches you holding on to nothing. And let go of everything. So that is a very interesting practice, and it mirrors the Taoist practice of letting go of your belief systems. Once we let go of our belief systems, then we can consciously choose our belief system, because a lot of our belief systems were programmed into us. We didn't have a chance to find our own way to believe. What was it? I think it was Picasso. Was it Picasso or Da Vinci that didn't go to school and became an incredibly intelligent person across many different fields? It was Leonardo da Vinci.
Da Vinci, yeah.
Anatomy, flight, art, many different fields. And because his own curiosity brought him there, so he kind of forged his own identity and belief systems rather than it being indoctrinated into him. So it's tough, because you and I, we all went to school and we all had those beliefs. So we did that. We went that route, and that created our belief systems. But as we've gotten older, we have the opportunity still to shake that up and tear that apart and look deeper and unpeel the layers of the onion and to see your true self. And the true self is that pure baby, that pure awareness. When you were a baby, you had no shame about being naked. You had no shame about going to the bathroom. You had no shame about anything, because you didn't know that you had to have shame about those things. So those were belief systems that were taught to you. And then filtering. Remember, don't you notice how some children are so bluntly honest? They have no filter.
Yeah.
And they're so true. They're so true. I love that about children. And we were taught to filter ourselves in a belief system that you can't be totally honest. So I'm not saying to get naked and go to the bathroom in the street. That's not what I'm not saying to go and tell the person what you really think of them. But I'm just trying to show you how we are so pure. We're just pure awareness at the beginning, and we're just absorbing. And so that's kind of what we're finding, that true self, that primordial space, that primordial state that we originated from.
Yeah, and who we really are.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know I realized this in somewhere around high school as well, and I've spent at least 40 years deprogramming myself. I'm still working on it.
It's a never-ending process because we're constantly, I mean, I remember my master, when he would walk through the city, the big city, he would keep his face to the ground because he didn't want to see the billboards because he knew they were trying to program him and they knew how to do it psychologically. And he doesn't watch advertisements because he knows that exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to program you. And you come away and I still remember jingles from commercials when I was a kid. You know, I still remember all those songs. And so you have that cultural programming, commercial programming, and the news you read, that's programming. It's all food for the mind. So yeah, cleansing and shaking the identity is a never-ending practice, especially in this world.
Yeah. They're always trying to reprogram you. Yeah, I have the same feeling about advertising. I avert my attention. I found that a lot of people in society find that it's inexplicable to them that you wouldn't want to watch commercials. Yeah. So you mentioned before about, maybe just a couple more questions here, successful people having issues with maybe physical things or fear. I mean, what do you think might be going on there when really successful people who seem to have everything can maybe still feel unfulfilled and maybe even unsafe or fearful?
How do they feel when they're feeling unsafe and unfulfilled?
Like, by conventional wisdom, that shouldn't be the case.
Right.
Yet, it looks like that is the case.
Well, you just had that 44-year-old super successful guy. I can't remember his name. It was all over the news. People were sharing it. Like, no matter how rich he was, he couldn't save himself from cancer. And I can't remember. It was like 44 years old, still young, and a multi-billionaire, but he still died of cancer. So it just shows, like, no matter how successful you are in the material world, you can't outsource your health. The best doctors in the world, all the money in the world can't save you. And that I've seen with multiple people I've worked with. I worked with one guy, one of the most genius people I've ever met in my life, sold his company for $2 billion, but it was dying of cancer, raging cancer. Doctors told him to say his goodbyes. They said there was no way to save him. So he went into cutting edge alternative medicines and Qigong, and he survived. He lived, and he's still alive to this day.
He did?
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's married, and he's living on an organic farm. So he didn't believe what the identity, that the belief system that the doctors tried to give him. Because had he gone their route, yes, he wouldn't have survived. The route that they had for him, there was no way he could live. So, yeah, which is interesting, right? So
It is.
So he snapped out of that fear and that belief system, opened his mind, shook his identity, changed his life completely, stepped out of business altogether, quit it completely, and just focused 100% into his health. And he realized a lot of that was he had deep anxiety and deep, which was propelled his business, but it accelerated his decline in health too. It's a double-edged sword, that deep anxiety to perform.
Yeah, it sometimes seems that like the traditional healthcare, well, I learned this years ago. I saw this, that you can only heal yourself. Other people can't. Even if I'm in a role as a healer, I'm facilitating, I'm supporting, but in the end, the healing comes from the person. I'm just setting up a circumstance where they will pay attention to it and be able to do it. You have to do it. And I think it goes beyond healing, too. Really, your life is your reality. I think we're in our own little realities, each of us, and it's our responsibility because it can't be anybody else's. It simply can't be. One last question. If people could understand maybe one thing, one truth about their own potential, what would you say that might be?
If people could understand one truth about their potential, is that most people are only tapping into a tiny, tiny percent of their potential. And you have so much more than you ever realized. But you must discover it yourself. There's no one's going to give it to you. You must find the truth. It's just like if you want to do something healthy now, you have to really do the research. Like, they're not going to teach it to you. No one's going to come and say, hey, microplastics are everywhere. Don't wear plastics in your underwear. Don't drink out of use plastic blenders. Don't wrap your food in plastic. Don't drink out of plastic bottles constantly. You got to do that research for yourself, and then you've got to make the changes yourself. So that's just an example, but like the same, it mirrors like what goes on with your emotional wellness, your physical wellness. You have to do the research yourself to find that potential, and then you have to believe in yourself. People say to me, do you think this Qigong stuff will really work for me? I said, it has nothing to do with what I believe. It has to do 100% with what you believe, because the power of belief in Qigong is paramount. So what we're doing in Qigong, from a neuroscience perspective, what I learned from working with neuroscientists, is that what we're doing is the placebo effect is real, because when you believe something to be so real, what happens is you kick off neurochemical releases as if it's actually happening. And so that can be a double-edged sword. Like, it can work against you or for you. Like, if you believe that your life is in danger, you're going to have cortisol releases, and you're going to really start to release all the neurochemicals of being in danger. And then if you go through trauma and you keep reliving that trauma, you keep releasing those same neurochemicals as when the trauma actually happened. So you're reliving on a physical level too. But if we shift that and break free of that identity, and we're releasing the neurochemicals like serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, the kind of neurochemicals that make us feel good, now we're creating that positive effect on ourselves and our body at will. And that's part of our potential. Okay.
Fantastic.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show. I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of food for thought there. Hi guys, if you could like, subscribe, follow, share, that way I can help bring you more information and better podcasts in the future. Thanks.